Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about the newest Le Mans eSports Rivals event taking place from the 31st of January until the 9th of February. So this new rival is going to be the Lancia Beta Montecarlo Turbo on the Nürburgring GP track. Nürburgring GP, I don't really have to talk about it really much. Pretty much every motorsport fan knows the track. It's a really well-known place and a track that gives a lot of action, and we're going to see in this lap there is a lot of action, even for a one-lap shootout, let's say. So we are going to do the same kind of format as last time. So we're going to start by checking the driving assist that you will use during that Rivals event. Don't be too surprised, it's the same assist as you had on the last event. I use the same as well, so no line, no TCS, no ABS, keep on the same assist. Be sure as well as the Mazda 7A7B to use the gearbox manual with clutch, because the car is quite old and it is also really slow for the upshifts. This time I strongly advise you to use simulation steering because the car isn't that sensitive and has a real, let's say the car has a real understeer problem sometimes that is really hard to cure, and the simulation steering quite helps for that. It makes the rear of the car a bit more sensitive on some corners, but if you do enough laps and practice, you can easily manage it. So continuing on the same format as last week, we are now going onto the telemetry to check the power band of the car, but this time I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I've taken this graphic from the car build system, and this is the graphic with the stock performance of the car. So the blue line you can see in the image is the torque, and the green line you can see is the power. We don't really need to focus too much on the torque because the torque is going to be more of a use in lower revs, but with this car, looking at the power band, we really want to use higher revs. We somewhat reach an optimal power on that graphic at about 8,000 RPM, and it kinda stays at its peak up until the rev limiter. In the reality, it's slightly different. The graphic doesn't really show it, but the power goes a little bit down after 9,000. So the peak performance of the car, of the engine, is going to be between 7.5, 8,000 to 9,000 RPM. And that's where we're going to try to stick for most of the lap. So you will see in the lab, but I recommend that you try to upshift at about 9,000 to 9,500 RPM, because as I said, the power drop is really small after 9,000, but it is still maybe a few thousandths of a second that can matter. So try to not go really over 9.5. It's not gonna do too much of a difference, but keep it in the side of your head if you're on a good lap. So now it's time for you to enjoy the lap that I recorded. I will do as last time, be silent for the first tour of the lap, you can enjoy it, and then we'll be back later to do deep analysis, turn by turn, on what to do and what not to do. here we are back again to see what we can check on that lap. So first off, main straight, keep the car in 4th gear because the time to shift is gonna be a bit too long and you won't gain that time back even with the little bit more power you will have in 5th gear. So it's just better to stay in 4th gear to push it to the maximum, 10,000 revs. It's not a big difference, but you'll gain about half a car length. So take it, it's free. So coming up to turn 1, almost 250 kilometers per hour. I just stopped on the braking point I use for bonnet cam. You can use the Yokohama signs on the right if you want. If you use another camera, I don't really know where you can brake, but you can probably use either the signs on the left or maybe the curb. Just brake slightly before the curb on the left that we can see just in front of us right now. So hard brake, going back to second. Here, try to go to the apex quite early. We don't want it too early, but don't delay it too much. We want to be really as close as possible to the pole. And you want to use that curb a little bit, but don't go too much and don't use that grass because the drop on the inside of the corner is quite huge and the car is going to be kind of stuck on the ground. So because it's really low on the front splitter is going to touch the ground and you may go straight in the corner, and that's obviously not a good thing to do. Early apex, give a shot at the handbrake if you want, because it kind of helps the car to cure its understeer. And then get the throttle as early as possible, and it's going to be the same in every corner because the car has a massive turbo lag. So we need to actually load the turbo before accelerating. And the only way to do that is to press on the gas. Turn 2. Let the car flow. As you can see right at that moment, I'm not braking or accelerating. Just play with both, and once you find the car has a good balance, just let the car flow. Do not do anything to trouble her. Then try to go as close as possible to the inside curb. You may not want to hit it, just don't do what I did on that lap because it's really risky. You can do it, it can be fast, but it can also ruin your lap because that curb is really dangerous, and depending on the way you touch it, your car may bounce, which will result in a massive loss of time, and your car will slide. Turn 3, nothing too special, just use the curb on the inside, use a bit of the grass. Turn 4, use the grass as well, use the bump, and accelerate right after you've got through the bump. So here, just brake right on the line on the right with the transition to the short circuit. It's a really good marker. Hard brake, go back to third. Really go deep in the corner because that corner opens. So you want to keep as much speed as possible and be a little bit wide on the exit, but not too much. You don't want to use the whole width of the road to prepare for the next right-hander coming just after that. I had about 2/3 of the width of the car that were free on my right until I was on the grass, and that's about what you should leave up to 1 car width to still have a decent line for the right-hander. But the thing is, if you stay too much to the left, you will lose the time on the left corner. But if you go too far to the right, you will gain time on the left-hand corner, but you will lose too much time because of your bad line for the right-hand corner. So you have to find the right middle in that, and the good option is to be about on the middle of the track, a little bit to the right, because when you brake for the right-hander, you can still go a little bit to the left to prepare to have a better line through that right-hander. And that's what I'm going to do there. You can see I give myself a little bit of room on that right hand corner. Second gear, stay in second gear and throttle in second gear, even though it's going to be a short time before third gear. You have much more power, much more traction, so you should do that. And it's even better because you can use the natural banking on most of the corners on that track to get more traction and actually get the throttle even earlier than what you can expect. there is a lot of time to gain from that. So here, as you can see, I slightly missed the apex still because of that, but you can either use a tap on the handbrake or just try to get a slightly less momentum, slightly less speed on the corner entry. But if you don't get enough speed, you will just lose time because you will be too slow, and you'll have more turbo lag on the exit of the corner, and that's not what we want. That's why you have to keep more speed than what you think you can actually. Coming up with the hairpin, you can brake when the pavement section on the left starts. Hard braking as well, you can see you really have to get the brakes really hard on the start of the braking, and then try to not make them fade out too much. Playing the braking, go back to second gear. Try to get that V line we talked about on the previous episode. Accelerate super early, use the banking to get the traction. Coming up the Michael Schumacher S's. Fourth gear, do not touch that curb on the inside. You can touch the right one, but not the left one, because it's gonna make your car slide a lot. So just slightly touch it, but do not climb it. Coming up to the next left-hander. Here you really need to have a trail braking. I keep the car in third gear, but you can, if you want, just also use second gear and then go back to third to accelerate. It's pretty much as you like, it's pretty much the same. On that corner, you want to brake not too late because you want to use that inside curb and AstroTurf to make the car turn. I didn't use it too much on that lap, but you can use more of that AstroTurf, and the more you use it, the more your car will steer by itself, because it's gonna make the rear loose. But be careful to not use too much of it, because otherwise you won't be able to apply all the power of the car. Right-hander here, little brake, let the car flow, accelerate very early as well. Use everything you have, the AstroTurf if you can, but be careful to the sand trap on the left. Coming up to the final sector and the last chicane, here it's hood cam, but you can use the orange panel, let's say, that you can see on the guardrail on the right. I braked just a little bit after that, but you can definitely use it as a brake marker. Really very, very hard brake here. Go back to second gear. As you can see, I'm gonna really push the car, really use the rev, and you want to use as much curb as possible in that chicane, because there is definitely a lot of time to lose if you don't get the curbs right, or if you don't use everything the road can give you. Use everything, climb on the curbs, nice and easy. Throttle just after you've gone through the second part of the chicane, instantly, full power. You want to even start like when you climb on that second curb, because we remind you there is the turbo lags. The whole power comes when your car is coming back to some kind of balance between the front and the rear, just after you've gone on the curb. And then coming up to the final corner, use the left curb, climb on it to get even more width of the road than you can probably expect. You can use more than the tarmac, and it works really well with that car. You want to try to make the car rotate with the throttle and the way you enter the corner by getting quite a lot of speed to make the rear kind of lose a little bit of grip. And the goal is to keep the apex as long as possible between most of the corner, so that you can keep the car straight for the exit of the corner and get all the power without actually losing the rear, because it's really easy on that corner as there is no banking, there's no natural banking compared to most of the other corners, so be careful on that. Coming to the exit of the corner, that curb on the left, you don't want to touch it. It's the same kind of curb as the turn 2 inside curb. When you go too much on it, there is a high chance, it's not every time, but there is a high chance that your car will bounce. And when it bounces on that place, you may lose the car, lose the grip, but even if you don't, you may hit the rev limiter because of that, so you will instantly lose maybe a tenth, maybe even 2 if it's a really big hit on the rev limiter. So just don't do that. That's the end of the lap, and I'm gonna give you one last tip. When you prepare for the lap on that track, you can try to have a much wider line on the final corner to maybe get 1 or 2 more kilometers per hour for the next lap and the pit straight. It's gonna give you maybe half a car length, maybe even less, but it's still something you want to get if you aim to do the best lap you can. So think about it. And that's it. And that lap, 157.017. It was a pretty good lap for me. The final sector was great. I was slightly behind on the first sector, but my previous best had an insane first sector. So I'm really satisfied from that lap. It took me about, let's say, 2 to 3 hours to get that lap done. If I add up my best sectors, I could have aimed for something like a 156.8 or maybe a 0.7. That's what I see with what I had of practice. And I really think that a 56.5 would be an amazing lap. Maybe it's gonna go lower, but I doubt about it. Mid 56 looks a really solid lap, and it's gonna be hard to beat. So that's it. That's the end of the video. I hope you liked the lap. I tried to change a little bit of my analysis to make it a bit more detailed and give you a little bit more information on the small things that can make you a better driver and give you better time. If you liked the video, press the like button, think about subscribing to the channel, and be sure to comment either under the video or on Twitter to tell me what you want to see next and what would you want me to improve for the next video. I will definitely continue to make some other guides for the next events, but if you have any suggestions for other video in the meantime, in between, I'll gladly take them, so thank you for that in advance. Anyway, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.